what's truly preventing from all of the freelancers that I've coached, it's very, very like consistent, is that what's really preventing them is that it's not unstable income. It's the unstable trust in themselves that they can do this.
Oh my God, this is so good. Oh my gosh. Welcome to Spill the Creativity Podcast, the podcast where we will be having conversations with other creatives that will inspire us, keep us encouraged, and push us to reach our own goals. This is the place where we will be acknowledging the hard truths because while this path is fulfilling, the truth is there's no easy way to do things. It all takes hard work. We are going to be talking about the good and the bad about choosing a creative career. If you're looking for a cup of stimulation for creatives, a warm cup of tea in this otherwise bittersweet pursuit, then you're in the right place. So let's get that cup of tea and get on with the conversation. I am so excited to have you here with me today because I would say for the past year, I think we worked together for almost a year. After getting your one-on-one, I availed your group coaching program and now the tables have turned. I get to ask the questions this time. So I'm so excited for this session that we have a lot of questions from the people in the community and I'm so excited for you to share your thoughts. But before we get into that, let us know about yourself first, Coach Nik. What do you do? How long have you been doing it?
Yeah. Well, first off, I'm happy to be here and honored to be here and happy to see you just continuously like embracing what you're passionate about and just living your life the way you want it. I'm happy that I get to be a part of your life. Truly, like we've been working together for like a year nga. So yeah, what do I do? So like in terms of, the official IG bio, if you if you want, it's like that I used to be a shopaholic. Now I share that I'm a money mindset coach, that I help Filipino professionals to fund their dreams on their terms that are aligned with their purpose, that are aligned with their values, where they get to create their own version of financial freedom. Because I believe that each and every Filipino, we have our different versions of how financial freedom looks like, how financial success is on our terms. And I love to be a part of that conversation. The message that I really want to put out there is that we can build sustainable money habits where we get to create the balance of enjoying the now while also preparing for our future goals. So that we get to feel like we are in control, we are confident in handling our finances in such a way that it is on our terms, not according to sabi nila, not according to kasi sabi ni ganyan or nakita ko sa ganyan, like we get to create our own tailor-fit version because I believe that when we get to master habits around money, we also get to master our decisions around our life as well. So that's like the snippet of what I do.
I love it. Yeah. Okay. I want to ask so many questions based on that intro alone. But before I ask those questions, I was curious, before you became a coach, what were you before that? I knew that you were in corporate, but would it be all right if you share like what you did exactly?
Yeah, I mean, my LinkedIn is also like available for everyone. Like you could Google me on LinkedIn and you'll see there my historical ganyan. But in terms of what I did, I was in the agency life for 4.5 years. And then I moved to retail or brand side for almost 2 years. So if you'd say parang, yung expertise ko was like in digital marketing. So yun. So it was like, kumbaga when I was in college, I majored in advertising in com arts. So parang yung natural na path was like agency or like you go to a multinational company. And so it was just like checking the boxes. And so it's like, okay, maybe that's what I'm supposed to do, And so when I did that, like I climbed the corporate ladder, I got to that point, I became a senior manager and all of that. I got the quote-unquote corporate salary, the dream salary. It wasn't 6 figures, but for me at my age, it was like what I hoped it would be. And then I just reached the point and I was like, is this it? Is this it? Like, I have the dream job. So like, what's wrong? Like, why don't I feel like I've made it? Why do I feel like there's still something missing? And then that's really that's when I really got into using shopping as a coping mechanism of like, oh, I don't know if this is really the career I really want for my life. But what I do know is that when I shop for something, it's going to arrive to my doorstep. So, at least that I'm in control of. And I didn't come to terms with it first. Na parang, Nik, dapat grateful ka. Diba? Ito na yung gusto mo, na-achieve mo na, ganyan-ganyan. So why are you so ungrateful? Ganyan. And then I realized there's like really a thin line between settling and like being contented. I was really just settling versus like, what do I really want out of life? And how can I be honest with myself that this is no longer the dream that I thought I wanted? I can change my mind. And so I did.
Yeah, I love it. And I want to talk about the thing that you mentioned where you were struggling with coming to terms with that realization. Because I feel like a lot of people are afraid to acknowledge those feelings that they have. I would say, like, not everybody would have the courage to really own that feeling. Now, there's something more, and not everybody has the drive to really pursue it. So it's really nice that you were able to acknowledge that. But was it difficult for you? Like, what were the things that you were thinking, or probably the things that you went through before you finally admitted to yourself, now, okay, this is really not for me and I'm meant to do something else?
Yeah. When I tell you that it's been the hardest thing I've ever done, like to this point where like when you have deep conversations with like your friends or with your partner and you're like, what's the craziest thing you've ever done? I'm like quitting my 6-year corporate career and starting an online business. Like it's still like, it still hits me sometimes. I'm just like, damn, like I did that. I did that, because I would say it was one of the darkest place I was in. I didn't even know it was. Because I didn't admit it to myself. I was like, oh, Nick, diba ito yung gusto mo, diba? O, diba you're getting this amount? O, diba you can shop naman? O, diba you're able to do? O, diba you have this title? It's in your resume, ganyan, ganyan. I was in denial of that because I was trying to cling on to the dream life I thought I wanted. I can still remember the time na parang when it hit me kasi I didn't want to talk about it. I couldn't talk about it to my parents. I couldn't talk about it really to my partner. Parang I was like, inisip ko parang arte mo,
Yes.
ka. Yung parang gano'n. Like, I was literally talking to myself in such a poor way na parang, you're supposed to be responsible, Nick. Like, you can't just like, because you don't feel like it, just because you don't change your mind, like, all of a sudden, you're not gonna do it, Because I was kind of brought up that way unconsciously. Na parang, because I've seen my parents work hard for allowing us to eventually, get into the school, to have our education, to show us that, kumbaga, to be grateful for what we had because my parents didn't grow up in such a great way. It was really hard for them. And so, parang bumalik ako doon na parang, Nick, yung parents mo nga ganyan nang galing, tapos ikaw just gonna quit the job. Parang, I remember the person I was only able to talk to, and this is why, for me, it's important to have at least one person you trust to talk about these kinds of things, is that it was my sister. And at that time, it was kind of, I was kind of like, what do you call that? Yung self-deprecating humor. Parang I just quit my job tomorrow, right? Lol. What if I do? Lol. What, I'm just gonna do YouTube for a year, lol. Yung parang gano'n.
Yeah,
yung parang puro joke, pero deep inside, alam mo na parang may hugot ka. I remember my older sister, we were like literally talking on Telegram, and then she doesn't know while I was saying these things, I was like crying like a crazy person. I was like, lol, but I was like crying, literally tears. I was like, oh my God, I just hit the quarter life crisis. Lol. Alam mo yon? Pero like, it was late on a Wednesday night and I was so miserable. And then my sister was like, what if you just do it? What's the worst thing that could happen? What's the worst thing that could happen? And then at the end of the day, when you think about it, it's just your pride, right? Your ego that's gonna get stepped on. Nakakahiya if you do it, tapos you fail. Oh, yung gagawin mo, tapos you make a fool of yourself. Yeah. And I was like, damn, that's not the worst thing that could happen. The worst thing that could happen is that 1 year, 3 years from now, I don't do anything about my situation and I'm still stuck. That was the worst thing. So I would rather be humiliated. I would rather be judged. I would rather be criticized because I realized that people are going to judge you anyway. Might as well do what you want,
I love that. And it also made me remember about the time when I also quit my day job. And I also had the exact same thought process. I quit my job in 2020. That was the time when there was like massive layoffs happening left and right. People were losing their jobs. People were getting sick. People were asking for donations left and right. I was getting really burnt out and I was also really unhappy with my day job. Tapos I was having these thoughts of resigning. So that was the time when there was like a massive layoff in the company that I was in and I was spared. And I was having these thoughts na, what if mag-resign ako? And then I was immediately shutting myself down na parang, wow ha, the audacity. Aren't you supposed to be grateful na sa dami ng tinanggal, ikaw, andyan ka pa, ikaw may trabaho ka, tapos gusto mo mag-resign? Kapal naman ang mukha mo. As in, yun yung narrative that's going on in my head. I would like to say, at least for me, to a certain extent, I felt like the worst thing that could happen to me was being judged. Kasi the things that the people around me say I really take that into consideration, or parang it really means a lot to me what they think about me. So them judging me or them not being proud of me at some point was the worst thing that could happen to me. Pero when you dig deeper, parang, is that really the worst? Anyway, okay, I'm really happy that you shared that with us. Sharing a little bit of vulnerability and like this reality would be a really great help to make people think now, okay, if Coach Nick did it, I can do it too.
Yeah, I don't shy away from that, like sharing all of those things, because my mission ever since is that if my sister was that to me, I wish I could be that.
Yes. And you are actually like one of the super lucky ones because you have a sister to share that with. I mean, one of the struggles of other people is looking for that one person that they can trust these thoughts with. Because as you mentioned a while ago, like it's really important to have that one person that you trust. And it's so nice that you have one like within your immediate family. And I remember when you were sharing that your mentor was your sister, I'm like, huh. I wish everybody had a mentor sister.
And it's crazy to me also was because I denied that for so long also. I denied help. I was like, kasi diba dapat Nick, strong, independent woman ka, diba? I realized that was such a, looking back, it's such a toxic trait of like saying you're strong and independent, but then you don't own up to your feelings. You don't own up to what you're really going through, because I believe that being strong is about acknowledging like, hey, I'm sad. Hey, I feel miserable about this. I can feel that. And then what am I going to do about it now? And for so long, I denied that with my sister. Like, parang, kasi my sister has a successful business and all of that. But then, for some reason, nahiya ako, sarili kong kapatid, nahiya ako na parang to quote-unquote ask for help. And then, that was a time kasi I just wanted to maximize the resources around me. I wanted to maximize who can I talk to about this. Because if you don't have a business, you won't be able to understand. In my corporate job, they're like, Nick, as in ito pa, I can still remember. When I decided to quit my job and be firm about it, everyone was so shocked. Because they said, oh, I thought parang Nick, ikaw yung reliable. Ikaw yung practical. I can still remember that. That's when I realized that if I keep clinging on to these kinds of thoughts and like perceptions about me, they're gonna like eat me alive. That's why I needed to have at least one person, one resource. Kinapalan ko yung face ko nga na I asked my sister, like, can I have you as my business mentor? Can we see each other like twice a month? She's in Germany, I'm in the Philippines. So, intentional talaga na magkikita kami online and all of that. And then that's when I saw how important it is to just have someone to talk to and be honest about like, this is what I want, this is what I don't want. And what if that's okay? What if it's okay not to want things that you thought you wanted 1 year ago?
Yeah, I also get it why the older generation had that kind of mindset. Because if you notice, our parents, like, they only had 1 or 2 jobs and they stick to it forever, like 30 years. And like, okay,
exactly.
So I feel like a lot of that sticking to one thing narrative came from that generation. But things are changing. And probably because before there weren't as many opportunities as there are now. But now it's different. There are so many opportunities, and opportunities are meant to be explored. And I want to go back on what you said about asking for help, because, I mean, what were we thinking? Not asking for help. We were in our early 20s. What made us think that we know everything? Kaka-graduate lang natin. Alam na natin lahat. Ano yun? Diba?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I think it's also stemmed from, right, the past generation, like the baby boomer generation. It was like a badge of honor na maging martir ka. Now you're supposed to work hard and like keep it to yourself, and, and it's kind of also how we were conditioned in school. Na parang, no one cares if you don't sleep. What matters is the output. And it's kind of like that na, now we're scared to like, oh, if I ask for help, it means I'm weak. It means na I'm not good. I'm not ganyan. But then I think this is what I love about, in terms of the freelancing community, the creative community, is that we acknowledge that asking for help means that we get to learn from people who have done it. If we can learn from them, we can do it much faster.
Exactly. So that's really interesting. And I want to know how you went from advertising agency girl to a money mindset coach. How did you choose? Or what was like the thought process behind, okay, I want to be a money mindset coach. How did that happen?
Yeah. You know what? I could like talk an hour about it, but then of course I'm gonna keep it short. Okay. So I remember I just knew that there was more to money than just money management, because I was pegging it in my experience. I was like, alam ko naman, you should save. Alam ko naman, you should invest. Ganyan. Alam ko naman na, like you should set aside XXX. Ganyan. But then I was like, how come I'm still yo-yo saving? How come I'm scared to use my money. I had like 6 figures in my bank account that I could use to quit my job, but I was scared to do it, you know? So I was like, I feel like there's more to it than just like face value money, you know? And that's when I realized, like, in my own journey, is that how my actions around money were really stemmed from my beliefs around money that were ingrained from me since childhood. Like, I remember, like, when I was talking to my sister, na parang, we grew up na, parang you always have to, like, hold on to money. Kasi yung parents ko, like, they really struggle at the start of their marriage, you know? And then, bunso kasi ako. So, pagdating ng bunso sa akin, okay na.
Yeah.
I was able to get to a good school and all of that. But then, I saw in my dad, okay, when we struggled, I saw it. Like, okay, pinupulis yung kuryente, pinupulis yung aircon, pinupulis yung mga ganong bagay. And so, parang unconsciously, it ingrained in me that you need to hold on to money. So I was always so scared to lose it. To the point na I wanted to pursue this dream that I wanted, this career that I wanted. I had the money to invest in a program, to invest in support, to have the funds to support myself while I'm doing this business, but I didn't want to do it. Because subconsciously, I thought na parang if I were to use this, your survival would be at risk. Your safety is at risk. Because I saw that. I saw that growing up, you know, that you need to hold on to money. And then that's when I realized that it becomes a problem when we're holding too much, like it's so tight towards money that it's paralyzing us. It's paralyzing us to go after what we want, you know?
Yeah.
So yun, parang it was a lot of inner work in me for me to realize na parang how I can let go of money in a way that feels good to me. And looking inward in terms of what was preventing me from starting a business, I realized it was a lot of money fears also. Na parang, because nga, you know, you got so used to, like, you know, what's the quote-unquote stable or whatever it is. And so that's when I realized that, which I've shared, is that money management is just really 10% of the work of funding the life that we want. 90% of it is overcoming all these limiting beliefs that were like conditioned in us since we were like 7, 6, you know, and it's every time, it's a constant work of like peeling those off and questioning, is that true? Or is that something that were just placed upon us? And how can we challenge them? So it was constantly challenging na parang, who says this is not practical? Who says this is not stable? Who says that this can only be done abroad? You know, because there was no money mindset coach. So I had to believe in myself na parang, you know, I remember my analogy then. I was like, kung may mga restaurants nga na Western na dinala sa Pilipinas and it turned out well, what makes this any different? I'm just borrowing what worked from Western countries and I'm just localizing it so that I can serve my fellow Filipinos. Yeah. What if I get to be the pioneer of that? And so it was constantly, the way I share it now is as if I like did that in a snap, but it was like a journey. It's a constant journey. Even to this day, as we were talking about before this call, is that as we level up with our goals, as we level up our life goals, our income goals, and things like that, it's constant. Lalabas yung mga parang, uy, diba? Ito yung kinalakihan mo, diba? Uy, dapat ganyan. So it's constantly challenging those. And at the same time, how can we be practical in terms of being financially prepared with our money management systems? So that's why I realized that it was more beyond just the Excel sheets and, you know, expense tracking. It was really deep into like, how can we challenge the limiting beliefs and fears around money that were ingrained in us? And how can we reframe them so that the cycle stop with us?
Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know that part of the story, but that is so interesting. I feel like one of the reasons why I am such an advocate, so like to my listeners who are also like part of the community, you'd probably be seeing Coach Nik in my stories a lot of the time. Like I've always been an advocate of your teachings or like your ways. And I'm realizing now that the reason why that is so is because, to your point earlier, it's not just about Excel sheets. Because if it's just about that, there are so many apps, there are so many formulas, there are so many like, you know, like free Excel templates. And for some reason, it just wasn't working for me. So I feel like that's really the difference. And okay, so the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it started to become a common practice that when you want to be rich, you're really supposed to be stingy or like hold on to money. But then the things that you are practicing, the principles that you are, you know, like teaching your students is the opposite. Na you have to know what your dream life is. So maybe you could expound on that more. Like, why is it important that we focus or we give emphasis on the things that we love as opposed to like just earning money and saving it and use all these Excel sheets and apps?
Yeah, I love this conversation because the reason why I talk about it is because I've done it both. Right? I tried that path and I was like, how come I'm still yo-yo saving? How come I'm scared to use my money? How come, as in, alam mo may face ako na naging hindi ko lang kung nakwento ko sa'yo, naging minimalist ako.
Yeah.
Parang, I'm like, oh, I'll only buy this, ganyan.
From a shopaholic to a minimalist, like what happened?
And it was like yo-yo pa, by the way. It's like, okay, minimalist. Tapos bigla na lang, bibili ako ng madaming damit for my capsule wardrobe. Parang, minimalist, bibili ka ng... Like, that's why, parang I was in that constant ganyan. Na parang, okay, I would save a lot. Tapos, bigla na lang, I feel like I'm depriving myself. So, I would then, all of a sudden, 10,000 worth of skincare. It was constant like that for 6 years. So, I was like, there must be something else. And so, I remember tying back to when I was so miserable with my life. It sounds so like, parang arte, diba? Pero like, yun nga yung thing na parang, what if it's okay for us to admit that we have a life crisis? We're questioning what the hell is going on with our life, because when else are we gonna question that when we're 40? Like,
yeah, when it's in a way too late.
Too late na parang, I wish I've done that with whatever. Anyway, so I realized that it's not that I lack self-control. It's that it's more of I lack purpose behind why I was doing things.
Yes.
Why I was spending, why I was saving, why I was investing. So in terms of what you shared earlier, like in terms of your dream life, that's what I started with. Ito parang, what do I really want out of life? What do I want to wake up to? How do I want my week to go? How do I want to see my life 3 months from now? And then I realized that when I focused on that, it was when it became so crystal clear for me on how I was able to live out my purpose by doing that, everything else just became background noise. All of a sudden, it became so easy for me, like, I don't need to buy the skincare. I'm not really tempted. Like, I don't need to buy the makeup because my purpose was so much greater than just the mini rewards. And so that's why at the start of, as you've shared, like at the start of the coaching, I empower my clients to feel excited and motivated about crafting their dream life so that becomes like the center stage. And then the temptation all of a sudden doesn't seem like a temptation anymore because that career, that property, that business, all of a sudden just becomes where your energy goes towards. That's where your focus goes. And then that's also how your financial system aligns with that. So what I've always shared is that instead of being money driven, we need to be purpose driven. Because I've tried both. I was so money driven, like, I need to get the next salary, the next promotion, the next, ladder and corporate. I still felt empty and miserable and I still went back to the same cycle, right? Instead of like, what if we became honest with ourselves on what is not aligned with our values? What is not aligned with what we truly want. Because, I think in our early 20s, that's when we realized that sometimes we've just been deciding based on what others want for us, but then it's not really what.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So I realized that most of the time, the money problem is just a symptom of a much deeper underlying root problem. My money problem of spending or yo-yo saving, there was an underlying root problem, which is that I felt miserable in my career, so might as well buy something to make me feel good in the moment.
Yeah.
I was feeling like I was losing control of my life, so might as well get a false illusion of control with buying stuff. Or like having the false sense of security of having money in a bank account, pero I'm not really pursuing the business that I want, the dream that I want. And so that's what I realized, especially in being a coach and the coaching training that I've been through, is that oftentimes if you have a money problem, that's just the surface problem. Yeah. There's something much deeper that if you want to solve it, like the cycle, you need to confront that deeper problem.
Yeah, having so many memories of our coaching sessions because like I went to you for money problems and then she's like, oh, are you sure that your relationship with this person is okay? Maybe this is what you want to do. And I'm like, what is happening? I'm here for money issues. And then, which is correct because these money issues are stemming from other problems that I was shrugging off or like we don't really take notice of because we think that it's probably like a management problem. It's probably like an impulse problem, but it's really more than that. And I want to go back to what you said earlier. I like what you said that sometimes we are trying to achieve the things that are not exactly our goals, but the goals of the people around us. And I want to really focus on this conversation because I'm pretty sure at some point you've come across content on TikTok about like earning 6 figures and 6-digit income and all these stuff. And I remember this is during our group coaching program where I believe like one of our issues was that we were not satisfied or we were feeling unhappy or pressured because we are no longer hitting 6 figures. And then you asked us, bakit ba kailangan may 6 figures? Anong meron sa 6 figures na kailangan yun yung goal? And then I remember all of us were like, oh nga, bakit nga? Na, like, when we were looking at what we were doing that time, most of us had emergency funds. That time, most of us had our own funds set aside. And that simple question was like a really good reminder that, okay, that's not your goal. Why are you even aiming for that? And I really wanted to focus on this because I feel like, especially in the freelance industry, you know, like they only consider themselves successful once they hit six figures. And it's really not the case. And I want to hear your thoughts about that as well.
Yeah. I think this goes back to like, that's why it's super important that we get to define what success looks like for us. You know, like we get to define that, okay, if this is what success looks like, what would be my target monthly income to get there? You know, and that's something that we work on together, that we need to first define like, okay, if I want to achieve XYZ within 6 to 12 months, what would be my target monthly income to support that? Because rather than, kasi yung, like what I've come to realize is that when we're constantly focused on a number, when we're constantly focused on earning more or whatever it is, right? It becomes endless because we don't know when is it going to be enough. So what if from the very start pa lang, we know what's enough? So that we get to be like, okay, if this is enough, this is what will support my lifestyle, my dreams. Therefore, this is the target monthly income that would get me there. And then if kunyari next level goals, okay, if my next level goals would be like, would need me to achieve six figures, great. Pero it's not the goal. It's just the byproduct. It's just the tool to get you to the life that you want.
Yes. And I really wish like people took that to heart. Since I kind of opened up the topic about like the freelance industry and this community. So one of the content that I put out quite recently is the quote unquote instability of the freelance life. And one of the things that I talked about in that content is how I dealt with it by preparing for it, like saving up for the rainy day, because it's not all the time that we have a lot of clients. One of the things that I talked about there is setting aside money for like an emergency fund so that when the time comes that not much cash flow is coming in, we are prepared. And there were a lot, I feel like I opened a can of worms when I talked about that because there were so many questions. And one of them is about tips or advice for those who are still struggling with setting aside an emergency fund, like allocating their earnings in a way so that they will be prepared when the time comes when not much clients are coming in.
Yeah. Well, I think the first question to really ask ourselves when it comes to that is like, how does financial stability look like for you? You know, because oftentimes we're like trying to follow a rule book of what stability looks like. Oh, stable means I need to see X amount every month. But they go to corporate, right? Like, I'm going to give you the hard truth there.
Yeah.
If you want to see exactly the fixed amount there, go to corporate. But if you want to have limitless income, you start a business, right? So that's why I really want to look into like, sometimes yung parang sinasabi na unpredictable income. Is it unpredictable or it just means that it can be varying because it's limitless, right? Parang may days na, may months na lower, pero biglang may ibang months na parang boom, double, diba? Ganong months.
Yeah.
So what if we thought of it that way, right? What if stability doesn't mean stable amount every month?
Yes.
You know, because this is like, I also like opened a can of worms. When I talked about this in my TikTok and my Instagram, I think na what I wish I knew earlier about being financially stable in my 20s. Because it's not, I realized, I mean, this could be controversial, but this is like, for me, what set me free about stability is number one, financial stability is not attached to the company you're employed in. You know, financial stability is not attached to the income stream, the business that you want to keep adding into your portfolio or whatever it is. Because the moment we attach our financial stability to a company or our financial stability to a certain amount that we need to see in our bank account every month, that's when it's easy to blame circumstances. Like, kaya pala hindi stable sa freelancing. Kaya pala unpredictable. Obviously, it's going to be different. You don't see the same amount every month, you know? And so for me, what's truly preventing from all of the freelancers that I've coached, it's very, very like consistent, is that what's really preventing them is that it's not the unstable income. It's the unstable trust in themselves that they can do this.
Oh my God, this is so good. Oh my gosh. Can't wait for our coaching call.
Because if you have stable trust in yourself that I have the abilities to make money, I have the abilities to provide value to people, I have the abilities, the capabilities to offer value to people, then you can choose any career you want. Gusto mo corporate, go. Gusto mo maging OBM, SMM, whatever, podcast manager, you can do that because you trust in your abilities that you have value to offer. That for me is stability. That for me is something you can control. Diba? Rather than, kasi si client delayed magbayad. Kasi how long are you gonna keep doing that? How long are you gonna blame circumstances and put yourself in control? So that's like one factor. That's the mindset work, right? Second factor is, of course, finances, right? So for me, what gave me the permission is yung what I coach my clients with is like having a freedom fund. So that's 3 to 6 months of your ideal monthly income. So that's going to give you the permission to go full-time in your business, to maybe, take a break from your business. Mag 1 month off ka, tapos won't accept clients muna, ganyan. Like for me, ngayong December, I decided not to accept clients kasi yung schedule ko with my wedding, saka sa move-in process ko, I'm like, girl, you cannot. So I gave myself that permission that, Nick, it's okay because you have your freedom fund for that. So,
Yes.
So that's why it's both ends, right? Like trust in your abilities, but at the same time also like, how can you build that fund wherein you can give yourself permission that okay lang mabawasan yon because this is just a temporary season in my life.
Yes.
And I get to turn off and on my skills in such a way that I can make money time and time again. Yeah.
I love that. I especially love the switching the narrative of instability to limitless. I feel like that is such a powerful mindset that everybody, freelancers, because I feel like that's majority of your clients, freelancers really. You also said a more fitting term na it's varied, not unstable. Another thing that I wanted to ask is probably something more actionable. The two things that you shared are number one for the mindset, which is like shifting the way you see things. And the second one is, like setting up a freedom fund. My next question would be, if you talk with a freelancer or somebody in the creative industry with a varied income each month, what is like one actionable step that you can, let them practice if they really want to take that step towards having more control over their finances?
Is this like, when you say freelancer, like, is this someone a full-time na or planning to?
Could be both. Okay, so let's start with planning muna. Yung magkukwit pa lang ng corporate. So maybe like one actionable step that they can do.
I think if we were to, the money management part, which is like 10% of the work, right? I think it would be helpful like start yung free monthly expense tracker ko just for them to face the reality. Because oftentimes, like this is like a common thread that I see with all of my clients is that most of the time, what's been stopping them is because they're scared to face the reality or confront themselves in the mirror na parang girl or guy, boy, parang this is what's not going well and this is what you can do differently. So that's why I have my free monthly expense tracker. If they are ready to confront that, and I really suggest that they do that, na, okay, this is what happened the past month. Based on this data, what am I going to do differently? And at the same time, what I share is like, how was I a cause to all those things? Kasi oftentimes like, kasi delay magbayad si client, kasi delay nagbayad yung company. Pero oftentimes it's so easy to blame, right? Versus like, what led to your expenses being that amount? Or what has been causing you to constantly hoard your savings and not doing, parang most of may ganun ding problem, right? Yung parang hoard ka lang ng hoard pero walang purpose. And so you feel like depriving yourself, diba? So it's like, that's one of the things that we did. Like one of the things that I also did myself, like yun nga, like literally how I coach my clients is literally how I did it myself, right? So parang one of the things that is super important is that you can really look at with that freebie that I have, then you can just look at, okay, ito yung nangyari nung past month. How can I take full accountability for what happened? Because I was the one who made the decision and I decide that, okay, this is what I did wrong, this is what I did right, and this is how I'm going to move forward. Because oftentimes we're just scared to face the facts, but we need to face the reality if we want to create the outcome we want. So that's the one side of things.
Yeah. Wait, okay. So before you go to the other side, I wanna comment on what you said na facing the reality, because I also experienced that na I already knew that I was having a bit of a difficulty with managing my finances. But you know how like when the bills come, I don't even look at it because I'm so scared. And then, bala na, ganon. And then it's also very empowering that you have the courage to actually look at those. Because I also remembered when you asked me to give you all these figures and I could still feel like yung kilikili ko pinapawisan. Ayokong i-share. Oh my gosh. And then, when it's done, tapos na. Tapos, parang you went through all the anxiety for nothing. I mean, like, once you type it up, yun na yun. And then, next thing you know, the next feeling, which is something that I want them to look forward to, is the feeling of empowerment na it's just a number. You can always change that. Again, you're in control. So, yun. So, I feel like, that's so good. It's so good that you reminded us of that. Okay.
So on to the other side. What is one thing that you could probably give advice to those who are already full-time? And maybe, let's put a little bit of context. Parang they weren't exactly prepared. Probably like me. Parang I took the leap and then, okay, what the hell did I just do? Parang
Yeah. So just to quickly add on to like facing the fact, my analogy here that maybe it will kind of make it easier for the person listening is that think of it as like, remember when we were kids and then we were just scared to open that dark room or like that dark closet kasi we're scared na baka lumabas si Monsters Inc. Or baka lumabas si Sadako or baka lumabas yung parang sa paranormal.
Yeah.
So we would constantly avoid the dark room. We're like, no, like, oh my gosh, I don't want to look at it. Like, I don't want to do it. Like, oh my gosh, kakainin ako ng monster. But then when we grew up, we realized that we just need to turn on the lights.
Yes.
And for us to see there was nothing to be scared of. We just needed to confront it.
Yeah.
You know?
It was probably an empty room the entire time. Or if you're lucky, there was a treasure in it. And it took you so long to turn on the lights. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I want the people listening for them to feel empowered that they have the power to turn on the lights.
Oh, so
you know?
Yeah. You love
that? So, yeah. Okay. So that's one side. And then the other side, if you're like, okay, you were here na, and then you're like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? I would say actionable tip would be, I saw in one of the comments that you shared is that how much do you want to set aside for like parang savings? Tama. For me, I would say I don't like calling things rules, but like ideal, you know? Like for me, when I started also, 20% of the income, I set it aside. So, kasi 80% were, yun yung ginamit ko for my living expenses. Because I remember when I quit, I told my parents as a matter of fact, FYI. So, they're like, okay, we'll support you emotionally. Wala kami bigay financially. So, you know, like, in a way, it kind of empowered me. So, I think that's one thing is that if you're already here and you're like, okay, you just quit and then, eto na, what have I done? Take ownership of that. Huwag ka nang you know, may moment na ganun eh. Parang, like decide, this is it, I'm going all in.
Yes.
And
quit ka na eh.
And for what purpose are you doing it? Because I'll be real with if this, whoever's listening can relate. If you're just in this for the money, you're bound to fail.
Yeah.
You need to be so clear on like why you're in this freelancing industry. Who are your people that you want to serve? Who are these people you want to offer value to? Because they're going to be your anchor when things are tough.
Yes.
You're going to keep, like, I remember when I was in the learning curve, I was like, okay, value, post. You know, like I was just like happy to share what I was going through, how I was overcoming it. And for me, if there's anything like for you to take action on, is that like get clear on like why you did this. Because that's the energy that's gonna come out when you post. When you get on a call, when you get a potential client, they're gonna say, she's just in here because she wants me to pay her or him.
Yeah.
Versus like, this person wants to help me.
Yes.
Sign me up. So for me, that energy, you need to be clear on. And then, you know what? If you say na parang, actually, I just did this because sabi may 6 figures. Pero parang hirap. Wag na lang. Go. Do it.
Yeah.
Go back to corporate first and then like, think about later on. Like, I want to be like so brutally honest about that because it wasn't easy.
Yes.
Diba nga? As you shared, like, there were a lot of things. But if you're like, okay, I'm really in here for the long run. I see that this is my purpose. This is really what I want to wake up to every day. Then I believe, like, if you constantly believe in that, then the right clients will come because you are the person for them. So when the clients are coming, at least set aside 20%. 20% to serve as your emergency fund from your income. And then 80% could be for your living expenses. Ganun yung ginawa ko sa simula. So that you could at least build up your emergency fund. And then eventually, when you build that emergency fund, you're gonna realize that when you master this habit with this, with the current income that you have, it's gonna be easier for you to scale, to add more clients. Because na-master mo na how to spend right, how to save with purpose. And so, I think that's kind of similar to like how we went through the process together with Tish. Like it was like really understanding ano yung bare minimum mo with your freelancing income. Own up to that. Like really own up to that. This is my bare minimum. Like that's why I want you to be crystal clear on why you're here.
Yes.
Because your why is gonna lead you to the right clients. And then second, be clear on what your bare minimum rate is. Stick to that.
Yeah.
And then third is like from that income, bare minimum income, can you set aside at least 20% so that would build up your emergency fund, and that would give you the peace of mind that this is something that you can keep going on because this is something that you're really, really passionate about and that you love waking up to every day.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so good. I really love what you said and how you reiterated that having a strong anchor, having a strong why, having a clear purpose is really going to be one of the things that's going to push you I guess this goes without saying that if you're in that phase of your freelancing journey, probably you're sick of hearing this because, when you go to TikTok, when you go to Instagram, a lot of the things that you're going to see are motivational stuff that says you have to know your why, but it may sound cliche, but it is really what's going to keep you there and keep you going. And going back to the conversation we had earlier, na just because you made a decision doesn't mean that that's it forever. So if you do realize at some point that this kind of work is not for you, you could always change your mind. And so I'm so happy that you shared those 3 super duper actionable steps. And if you're still not yet satisfied, as what Coach Nik said earlier, she has a freebie. Can you talk about your freebie again, Coach?
Yeah, so I'll share with you the link to download my free monthly expense tracker for them to face the facts. And then if they want to dive deeper in how to dig deeper into your mindset around money, I also have my free 60-minute training. I get a lot of comments and DMs about it's super valuable, super insightful. So that's really a great start. So those 2 things. And to add on to what I shared also is that I believe that when you're so clear on your why, the how becomes so much easier.
Yes.
It's so true because I remember my first online business that I wanted to start. It was a flop. It didn't work out. And then I was parang I had the option of okay, Nik, failure ka. Or will you be pero Nik, your people are still out there. How are you gonna keep helping them? How are you gonna keep showing up for them? Are you gonna fail them? And I hold on to that. Parang then let's do something different. So if whoever says it, if you're in that place that parang you feel like nothing's working out, if you focus on that why, on the people you really want to serve, you'd know the answer. Yeah. It's gonna be so much easier to know the answer. So yeah. And then if they also want to, all of these juicy things that Tish and I talked about, I go deeper into my YouTube videos, my TikTok videos, my Instagram, I have infographics there as well, more details there. So if you want to get into a rabbit hole, I have a lot of free content on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, and then my free training and free expense tracker as well.
Yes. Okay. So if you didn't catch any of that, don't worry because I'm going to put everything in the show notes. But okay, so obviously we're wrapping up now. I feel like this is not enough. But okay, so I do have one last question. My last question would be, what is the one thing you wish you knew when you were working on your finances as well?
This was such a challenging thing because I'm one thing?
Could be 2 or 3.
I would say this is something that really tumatagos usually with a lot of people, which is that money is just an amplifier of the habits you already have. So that means look at your habits now. If you receive more money, expect it's going to be double of that. So if you're impulsive now, you receive 6 figures, you're still going to be impulsive when you have 6 figures. When you're overwhelmed with 50K, you get 100K, you're going to be overwhelmed when you receive 100K. And also, if you want to see 500K in your bank account, if you're already overwhelmed with 100K, you're going to be more overwhelmed with that. So that's why what I always share is that master one income stream at a time.
Yes.
With the right spending and saving habits first. So instead of okay, I need to have 5 multiple income streams so that I could have financial freedom and all of that. I debunk that, right? So I'm I want to, I literally have 1 income stream now, which is my coaching business. And then for me, what led me to handle it right, to create a sustainable business is because when I was in my corporate job, I mastered how to spend right and save right then. So because of my corporate job, I was able to save up the funds to go full time in my business. So I just want you to think about whoever's listening is that check your money habits right now. Are you ready for that to be amplified when you receive more?
Yes. And that is so true. That is so true. If you can't handle 1 income stream, what makes you think that you can handle 2? I want to ask more questions, but probably I'd invite you again for a next episode. I don't know.
Magsingit ako ng isa pa para in relation to that. Diba ang dami pwede pag-usapan eh.
Okay, go.
Your money habits is also a reflection of how you perceive yourself. So think of it as I don't really feel enough. I don't really feel worthy. And so that's why you're scared to ask for a pay raise. You're scared to increase your prices. That's why you're scared to start a business because am I really good enough to charge that amount? Or I have to treat people so that they'd see my value. Okay. So that means that you're gonna keep overgiving. You're gonna keep feeling like I need to treat others for them to see that I have value to them, you know? That's what I've seen, even with myself, na parang, when I felt like I wasn't quote unquote enough or I wasn't good enough, I would compensate with shopping or eventually nag-hoard ako ng savings. Kasi parang, finally, I'll feel enough kasi may pera ako sa bank account ko.
Yes.
So that's what I've shared, na parang check your money habits. How can it reveal something about yourself? Because it sure as hell will.
That's so good. Okay, I'm not gonna ask any more questions. I'm gonna stretch on and on and on. So maybe we'll reserve that for another time. But then again, thank you so much, Coach Nik, for spending your afternoon with us. And I really hope like the people who are listening got a lot of insights from our conversation. And honestly, can't wait for our next coaching call. Oh my gosh.
See you January.
Yeah, see you January. And happy wedding celebration.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays then. Yeah, thank you so much. Bye.
Thanks again for listening to Spill the Creativity podcast. If you like this episode, I would really appreciate it if you can give me a 5-star rating on Spotify and a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. Or you can also take a screenshot and tag me on Instagram at Spill the Creativity Podcast, and you can also try the special filters if you want. Thanks again for listening to this episode, and make sure to catch fresh drops every Thursday morning. Bye!